Lord Toby Young's here, Tory peer, Vice Chair of the All-Party Parliamentary Group on Free Speech and, of course, founder of the Free Speech Union. Toby, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike.
So, we're going to talk initially about this media monitoring group, right? Muslim Media Watchdog, which is supposedly called the Centre for Media Monitoring, the CMM, pretending that it's not part of the Muslim Council of Great Britain. But I also wanted to talk more broadly to you about the passing through Parliament of this Islamophobia bill, because that's still going on, despite what we think, isn't it?
Well, it's not a bill, Mike. They're very keen to make the point that it's a non-statutory definition of Islamophobia, but so it's not. I mean, I wish it was a bill. So Angela Rayner has convened a working group to come up with an official definition of Islamophobia, which they're then going to convey to ministers in secret. They're not going to publish their definition. And then when ministers are happy, when Angela Rayner's happy, that definition will then be rolled out across the public sector, Whitehall, the police force, universities, and various efforts will be made to prescribe it. But it's being done in a non-statutory way. So there's no opportunity for the House of Commons or the House of Lords to scrutinise it. There's no opportunity to repeal it in the next Parliament. It's all being done under the radar. And there was a sort of minor scandal a couple of weeks ago when it emerged that the working group, in spite of having said that they would consult widely with various different stakeholder groups about this definition before arriving at it, it turned out they were actually inviting a hand-picked group of activists to submit to the consultation. And they didn't ask the Free Speech Union, they didn't ask Christian Concern, they didn't ask Policy Exchange. I mean, numerous groups who are very interested in this particular topic, and particularly its impact on freedom of speech, weren't consulted. Anyway, so the Free Speech Union wrote a threatening legal letter to Angela Rayner last week, pointing out that this consultation was a breach of public law principles. When it comes to who you're supposed to consult, you are supposed to consult broadly and widely, particularly if you say you're going to do that. And in addition, this business of wanting to convey their advice to ministers in secret and not publish their findings, not publish the evidence they've accumulated in the course of arriving at this definition, we said that too was a breach of public law, one of the Nolan principles, the principle of transparency. Anyway, a couple of days ago, the working group announced that actually they were now going to carry out a proper consultation. They were going to extend the deadline. So at least we've won a minor victory there.
Yes, and that's very good to hear. But, I mean, so I suppose in effect what they're trying to do here is create a law which isn't really a law then, but which will be acted upon by officers of the law, like the police. Yes,
I mean, it's a grey area. And it happened under the last government too, but I think it's really sinister. If you want to prescribe particular forms of speech, which is what this is all about, then that really should be done via legislation, with both houses of Parliament given an opportunity to scrutinise it properly. To try and do it under the radar, behind closed doors in this way, with no opportunity for accountability, just seems completely wrong. The Dominic Grieve, former Conservative Attorney General, who is the chair of the working group, his argument is, well, you don't have to worry about the impact this is going to have on free speech because it's non-statutory. No one's going to be prosecuted for being Islamophobic according to this definition. But we know from the way in which the all-party parliamentary group on British Muslims' definition of Islamophobia, that group came up with a definition. Again, it wasn't subject to parliamentary scrutiny, and that was taken up. It was taken up by the Labour Party, it was taken up by the Lib Dems, it was taken up by the Greens, various local authorities took it up. And part of that definition, we don't know yet whether this will be in the new definition, I hope not, but part of the APPG on British Muslims' definition of Islamophobia included, as an example of Islamophobia, drawing attention to the overrepresentation of Muslim men of Pakistani heritage in grooming gangs. And all these local authorities in places like Rotherham, where the grooming gangs were rife, embraced this definition. And I think that inhibited people from blowing the whistle, inhibited councillors and council employees. They were terrified of being accused of Islamophobic if they drew attention to the rape gangs. And it's not just this media monitoring unit which has been smearing people as Islamophobic if they've talked about the fact that in one case this media monitoring unit criticised the Associated Press for mentioning that the man who carried out the attack in the Manchester Arena was a Muslim and shouted Muslim slogans before he blew himself up. That was apparently Islamophobic. The Islamic Human Rights Commission, they named Baroness Casey as Islamophobe. They shortlisted her for the title Islamophobe of the Year. Various Labour MPs who blew the whistle were shortlisted for Islamophobe of the Year, like Sarah Champion. I mean, absolutely extraordinary. But we know from the recent past that if you come up with a definition of Islamophobia, if local authorities, if Whitehall departments, if political parties take it up and embrace it, it inhibits people. They're terrified of criticising Islam, terrified of drawing attention to the overrepresentation of Muslims in grooming gangs, in terrorist attacks, for fear of being branded Islamophobic. It's absurd that one religion should enjoy this special protection. What about Christophobia? What about Hindu phobia? What about Sikhophobia? Why should we single out one particular group for this special protection? It's two-tierism.
It really is two-tierism. I mean, interestingly, I was reading in the Telegraph today that Lord Hermer has apparently given himself extra powers and an effective veto over government policy, which might include this. And I wonder if there's a loophole here, because he claims now that lawyers should assume that every decision made by a minister will be subject to a legal challenge. So perhaps this one could also be subject to a legal challenge.
Yes, well, we laid the groundwork. The Free Speech Union laid the groundwork for a legal challenge in our letter to Angela Rayner last week. And it seems they are concerned about that, Mike, because they've now announced that they're going to make these various adjustments to the way they're going about coming up with this definition, so it's less challengeable. But nevertheless, it may well be challengeable. I would have thought that, who knows, but I would have thought that Lord Hermer is more likely to claim that legislation he doesn't like is vulnerable to legal challenge than legislation he likes.
Yeah, I think that's unfortunately very, very true. Good to talk to you. Lord Toby Young there, thank you very much indeed. Founder of the Free Speech Union, fighting a good fight for everybody in this country.